78,000 people. Gone. Not on holiday. Not visiting family overseas. Gone. In a single year, New Zealand lost more of its own citizens than at any point in recorded history. And the man running this country stood at a podium, adjusted his tie, and told you the economy was turning a corner. Which corner, exactly? Because if you live here, if you're paying rent that keeps climbing, watching mates post Brisbane sunsets on Instagram, wondering why your suburb feels half empty on a Saturday morning, you already know something doesn't add up. And nobody at the top is saying it out loud. So we will. This video goes where the press releases don't. We're following the money, the data, and the people because the real story of New Zealand right now isn't in the budget documents. It's in who's leaving, and more importantly, why. But wait, before we begin, please subscribe to ensure that you never miss out on any of my essential stuff. Comment, I subscribe below, and I will personally welcome you to our community. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll never hear a government announcement the same way again. I want you to meet Aroha, 29 years old, registered nurse, Hamilton. She didn't fall into nursing, she chose it. Trained at Waikato DHB, showed up early, stayed late, built her whole identity around caring for people. Then COVID hit, and Aroha ran toward it. Double shifts, night rounds, holding the hands of patients whose families couldn't get into the ward. She did things in those 2 years that most people will never have to do, and she kept showing up because that's who she is. She believed the system would recognize that. She believed New Zealand would reward people who gave everything. Then 2023 arrived. Her rent went up, then up again. 34% in 18 months. The same apartment, the same landlord, a different number on the invoice. Her student loan sat there, barely moving. Her pay rise came through. 3%. She sat at her kitchen table one Tuesday night at 2 a.m. Calculator open. A cup of tea she'd made an hour ago and completely forgotten about, gone cold beside her. And she did the maths. It didn't work. Not in 5 years. Not 10. Not if she stayed in Hamilton and kept doing everything right. She applied to Queensland Health the next morning. Today, Aroha works at Royal Brisbane Hospital. She earns 31 Australian dollars an hour. Australia has no student loan repayment system for migrants. Hers effectively disappeared the day she crossed the Tasman. Her savings account is actually growing. She calls her mum every Sunday. She misses the Waikato River in the early morning. She misses the way Hamilton smells after rain. But she does not miss doing the maths at 2 a.m. and coming up empty. Here's the thing. Aroha isn't a sad story. Aroha made it work. Aroha is the data. And the data, as we're about to see, is devastating. Now, let's talk numbers. Because feelings don't lie, but neither does data. And right now, the data is telling a story that should be making headlines every single day. Let's start here. The International Monetary Fund, in its 2024 World Economic Outlook, confirmed that New Zealand's GDP per capita has fallen below the OECD average. The last time that happened? The 1980s. Think about that. We are, by that single measure, performing worse relative to the developed world than we were during the Reaganomics era, one of the most economically brutal periods in modern New Zealand history. But it gets more personal than GDP. When you adjust for cost of living, when you ask what does your wage actually buy you, New Zealand workers are now earning less in real terms than workers in Spain, Estonia, South Korea. 11 OECD nations that New Zealanders spent decades looking down on economically are now outpacing us on purchasing power. Let that land. And then there's housing. Auckland's housing affordability ratio, median house price divided by median annual income, currently sits at 9.2 times. You know what Sydney's is? 8.8. New Zealand, less affordable than Sydney. A city Kiwis have been laughing at for years for being impossibly expensive. We crossed that line, and nobody called it out. Now, in March 2024, Christopher Luxon stood in front of cameras and told the country the economy was turning a corner. That same week, the OECD released its growth forecast for New Zealand, 0.9%, second lowest in the entire developed world. Same week, same economy. Two completely different realities, depending on whether you're reading the press release or the report. That gap between what's being said and what's actually happening is exactly why 78,000 people stopped waiting for the corner to turn. But here's where it gets genuinely strange. Because while New Zealanders are leaving at record rates, someone else is arriving. And the government is very, very quiet about what that actually means. Here's the paradox nobody wants to say on the evening news. New Zealand is not actually shrinking. In fact, on paper, it's growing. While 78,000 New Zealand-born citizens packed their lives into shipping containers and headed for the Tasman, a wave of new arrivals was coming the other way. Workers from the Philippines, India, Sri Lanka, across the Pacific. Net migration? Positive. Government response? C. The economy is attracting people. Things are working. And here's where you have to pay very close attention, because the headline is technically true and completely misleading at the same time. Stats NZ confirmed that in the year ending June 2024, New Zealand lost 42,500 citizens to Australia alone. A record, the highest number since records began in 1979. So yes, people are arriving, but the people leaving are not being replaced like for like. We are trading experienced, credentialed, tax-paying citizens. People who know how this country works, who built careers here, who are embedded in communities, for entry-level workers in hospitality, agriculture, and care sectors. Now, and this is important, that is not a criticism of the people arriving. They're doing exactly what Aroha did, looking for a better life, running the maths, making a rational decision. This is about policy design, and the design has a flaw. A 2023 paper from Motu Economic Research, one of New Zealand's most respected independent economic institutions, found that high-volume, lower-wage migration streams, concentrated in already saturated labor sectors, reduce wage growth for existing low-to-middle-income workers by up to 4.2%. For 0.2%, on wages that are already losing ground to inflation. Here's why that happens. When a visa ties a worker to a specific employer, when that worker has limited rights to leave, limited ability to negotiate, they accept conditions that a local worker wouldn't. And that becomes the new floor for everyone. So the government opened the immigration tab to fix a labor shortage. And in doing so, unintentionally or not, it applied downward pressure on the wages of the very New Zealanders it was supposed to be helping. Higher rents, suppressed wages, a housing ladder with the bottom rungs removed. Is it any wonder people are leaving? But here's what really keeps economists up at night. This isn't hitting everyone equally. There's one generation absorbing almost all of this damage, and they were never given the tools to fight back. Meet Callum, 34 years old, IT project manager. Wellington, he is not a cautionary tale. He is not someone who made bad decisions or lived beyond his means or skipped the hard work. Callum did everything right. He got the degree, paid attention in class, graduated, worked his way up through 3 companies over 10 years. He and his partner rent a decent place in Newtown. They cook at home. They don't take extravagant holidays. They have a savings account they treat like it's sacred. For 6 years, they have been putting money away for a house deposit. 6 years of discipline. 6 years of saying no to things. 6 years of watching that number climb and telling themselves, nearly there. Earlier this year, Callum opened a property listing for a modest 3-bedroom home in the Hutt Valley. He checked his savings account, $80,000. He felt proud for about 30 seconds. Then he did the maths. $80,000 is 8% of the asking price. Banks require 20. He needs another $120,000, which at their current savings rate, assuming rent doesn't rise again, assuming nothing breaks, assuming no emergencies, is 6 more years away. And by then, the average price will have moved. It always moves. I used to think, he told me quietly, that I just needed to work harder. Now I think the game is rigged. He's not wrong to feel that way. CoreLogic New Zealand published the numbers in 2024 that confirm exactly what Callum is living. In 2002, it took the average New Zealander 4.2 years to save a house deposit. Today, 11.4 years. More than a decade of your life, your 30s, your prime earning years, just to get to the starting line. That's not a personal failure. That is a system that was redesigned, slowly, quietly, over 20 years, to make housing an investment vehicle for people who already own property at the direct expense of people who didn't. And an entire generation got handed the bill. But here's what Callum is doing now. And it's worth paying attention to, because he stopped trying to win a game he didn't design. There's a quiet movement growing among Kiwis in their late 20s and 30s. Economists are starting to call it equity migration. The deliberate, strategic decision to relocate your savings and your future somewhere your money actually works. Regional Australia, where median house prices in cities like Adelaide and Brisbane are lower and wages are higher. Portugal, which offers a non-habitual resident tax structure that dramatically reduces the tax burden for new arrivals. Parts of Southeast Asia, where New Zealand income carries 3 to 4 times the purchasing power. This isn't giving up on life. This isn't failure. This is people doing the same thing Aroha did at that kitchen table, running the maths, and following where the numbers lead. If you're in Callum's position, here's the framework that's actually helping people make this decision clearly. Audit, compare, decide. Audit your current trajectory honestly, not optimistic. Be in 10 years at your current savings rate. Compare that against one alternative destination. Do it seriously. Look at wages, housing costs, visa pathways, tax structures. Then decide, not from fear, not for nostalgia, not from a Facebook comment, from information. Because the people who are winning right now, in New Zealand and out of it, are the ones who stopped waiting for the system to fix itself. And speaking of the system, it's time we talked about the man running it. Let's talk about Christopher Luxon. And I want to be clear before we do, This is not a piece. This video doesn't care which team you support. This is about accountability to evidence. Because when 78,000 people leave your country in a single year, that is a policy outcome. And policy outcomes have authors. The national-led government came to power on 3 core economic pillars: tax relief, infrastructure investment, deregulation. The 2024 budget delivered $2.9 billion in tax cuts. And on the surface, who doesn't want to pay less tax? That sounds like good news. Except, the Treasury's own well-being report, published the same year by the same government's own department, quietly noted that wage growth had lagged behind inflation for the 3rd consecutive year. So taxes came down slightly, but the cost of everything else went up faster. And the gap between what you earn and what it costs to live kept widening. Now, look across the Tasman. Australia's Labor government restructured its Stage 3 tax cuts specifically to boost take-home pay for middle-income earners, the $45,000 to $120,000 bracket. The exact workers New Zealand is hemorrhaging. The result? Australia middle-income workers saw a real increase in purchasing power. New Zealand middle-income workers saw their purchasing power continue to erode. And Kiwis, being rational people, noticed. Luxon's answer to all of this has been consistent. Fiscal responsibility. Don't overspend. Keep debt manageable. Let the market correct. And look, fiscal discipline is not inherently wrong. Governments that spend recklessly cause their own catastrophes. But here's what economist Shamubil Eakob, one of the most cited independent economic voices in New Zealand, has argued repeatedly. There is a difference between fiscal responsibility for everyone and fiscal responsibility that systematically protects asset owners at the expense of workers. When your tax relief disproportionately benefits landlords and property investors. When your wage policy allows real incomes to fall 3 years running. When your migration settings suppress wages for the workers already here. That is a choice. It may be a well-intentioned choice. It may be a choice made under genuine constraints. But it is a choice. And choices have consequences. The consequence, right now, is that the people who built this country's hospitals, schools, infrastructure, and communities are doing the maths at kitchen tables at 2 a.m. And the maths keeps pointing the same direction. So here's the question that's been sitting underneath this entire video. Is the Kiwi Dream actually dead? Or is it just being sold to someone else? I've spent the last 8 minutes giving you hard truths. Statistics that sting. Stories that hit close to home. A political picture that doesn't have easy answers. So now I want to give you something different. Because here's what doesn't show up in a GDP report. New Zealand ranked 3rd in the entire world on the Global Peace Index in 2024. 3rd out of 163 countries. You walk to your car at night without thinking about it. Your kids go to school without a second thought. You disagree with your neighbor politically, and you still wave at them on a footpath. That is not nothing. In 2025, that is increasingly rare. And then there's the land itself. New Zealand's climate resilience scores. Habitable land per capita, freshwater reserves, agricultural capacity, geographic separation from the most catastrophic predicted climate zones, place it among the most strategically valuable places on Earth for the next 50 years. While the world scrambles for clean water and arable land, New Zealand is sitting on an extraordinary natural inheritance. That doesn't fix the rent. It doesn't close Callum's deposit gap. But it matters. It matters more than most people are currently pricing in.